The Battle of Thermopylae is one of the most legendary moments in history. A tale of unparalleled courage, sacrifice, and resilience that has captivated the imagination of the world for centuries. It tells the story of a small yet determined band of warriors who stood against an enormous invading force, knowing their chances of victory were slim. Their fight wasn't merely for survival, but for the hope of inspiring their people, defending their homeland, and leaving a legacy of defiance and heroism. Let's set the stage. It's the year 480 BCE. Persia, under the ambitious rule of King Xerxes, is the most powerful empire the world has ever seen. With its vast resources and unmatched wealth, Xerxes has assembled an enormous army, possibly exceeding 200,000 soldiers, to invade Greece. His goal is clear: to conquer the divided Greek city-states and cement Persian dominance over Europe. Backed by a formidable fleet of warships, Xerxes plans to crush any resistance, ensuring his empire's unchallenged supremacy on both land and sea. The invasion marks a pivotal moment in the struggle for freedom against tyranny. But Greece was no stranger to the looming Persian threat. A decade earlier, King Darius of Persia, Xerxes' father, had attempted to subjugate the fiercely independent Greek city-states, only to suffer a shocking defeat at the Battle of Marathon. That loss had been a humiliation for the Persian Empire, a blemish on its reputation of invincibility. Determined to restore his family's honor, Xerxes embarked on this invasion, driven not only by ambitions of conquest, but also by a burning desire for vengeance and reclaimed Persian pride. Faced with this overwhelming force, the Greeks had to act quickly. Despite their fierce independence and frequent rivalries, they understood that unity was their only chance. Delegates from Athens, Sparta, and other city-states convened to strategize. It was decided that they would mount their first stand at Thermopylae, a narrow pass that served as a gateway to central Greece. This pass, hemmed in by mountains on one side and the sea on the other, was the perfect location to neutralize the Persian numerical advantage. But even with this strategic position, the Greeks knew they would need an extraordinary effort to hold back the tide. Enter King Leonidas of Sparta. Leonidas wasn't just a ruler, he was a warrior king, trained from a young age in the brutal Spartan agoge system. This upbringing instilled in him and his men a culture of discipline, fearlessness, and unwavering loyalty to their city-state. When the call to defend Thermopylae came, Leonidas chose a small force of 300 elite Spartans, each of whom had a son to ensure their bloodline would continue if they fell. They were joined by around 7,000 warriors from other Greek city-states, all united under Leonidas' command. When Xerxes arrived at Thermopylae, he must have felt supremely confident. His army dwarfed the Greek forces, and his soldiers were well-equipped and battle-hardened. But the sight of the Spartans standing resolute at the pass gave him pause. Xerxes sent envoys to offer Leonidas a chance to surrender, promising that the Greeks' lives would be spared if they laid down their arms. Leonidas's reply became immortal: "Molon Lab," or "Come and take them." The battle began with waves of Persian attacks. Xerxes' forces advanced into the narrow pass, expecting to overwhelm the Greeks with sheer numbers. But the terrain worked against them. The tightly packed Persian soldiers couldn't maneuver effectively, while the Greeks, with their long spears, heavy shields, and iron discipline, formed an impenetrable phalanx. Time and time again, the Persians charged, only to be repelled with heavy losses. Greek soldiers, particularly the Spartans, were masters of close combat. They used their shields not just for protection, but as weapons to bash their enemies, while their spears and swords found gaps in Persian armor. For 2 full days, the Greeks held their ground. It was a stunning display of bravery and tactical genius. The Persians, frustrated and demoralized, began to falter. Xerxes, watching from a distance, couldn't believe what he was seeing. How could a few thousand Greeks be holding back the might of Persia? But the tide turned with a betrayal. A Greek trader named Ephialtes informed Xerxes of a hidden mountain path that bypassed the main pass. The Persian king seized this opportunity, sending his elite force, the Immortals, to flank the Greek position. Leonidas, realizing they were surrounded, made a fateful decision. He ordered the majority of the Greek forces to retreat, knowing they would be needed to continue the fight elsewhere. But he and his 300 Spartans, along with a small contingent of allies, including Thespians and Thebans, chose to stay and face certain death. On the third day, the Persians launched their final assault. Leonidas and his men fought with unparalleled ferocity. Outnumbered and surrounded, they used every weapon at their disposal. When their spears broke, they drew their swords. When their swords broke, they fought with their hands. The Spartans' resolve was so fierce that Xerxes reportedly lost more men on that final day than in the previous 2 days combined. Eventually, Leonidas fell, and his body became a rallying point for the Spartans, who fought desperately to recover it. They refused to surrender, choosing to die rather than give their enemy the satisfaction of victory. By the time the battle ended, every last defender had been killed. Xerxes, enraged and humiliated by the resistance, ordered Leonidas's body to be mutilated and displayed as a warning to the Greeks. But instead of instilling fear, it inspired defiance. The Battle of Thermopylae was a Persian victory in the immediate sense. The Greeks were defeated, and Xerxes' army marched onward, burning Athens to the ground. But the sacrifice of the 300 Spartans and their allies had far-reaching consequences. Their stand at Thermopylae became a symbol of resistance, galvanizing the Greek city-states to unite and continue the fight. Within a year, the Greeks achieved decisive victories at the naval battle of Salamis and the land battle of Plataea, ultimately driving the Persians out of Greece. What makes Thermopylae so enduring in the collective memory isn't just the heroism of the Spartans. It's the universal themes of sacrifice and the fight for freedom. Leonidas and his men knew they were facing impossible odds. They knew they would die. Yet they chose to stand and fight, not for glory, but for their homeland, their families, and the hope that their actions would inspire others. The story of Thermopylae also highlights the power of strategy and terrain in warfare. The Greeks understood that their strength lay not in numbers, but in tactics and unity. They exploited the narrow pass to maximum effect, turning it into a killing ground where Persian numbers counted for little. Over the centuries, Thermopylae has been retold in countless forms: books, films, and even political speeches. Perhaps the most famous modern adaptation is the movie 300, which, while dramatized, captures the spirit of defiance and the larger-than-life bravery of the Spartans. But it's worth noting that the Battle of Thermopylae isn't just about the Spartans. The Thespians, who fought to the death alongside Leonidas, deserve equal recognition. Their commitment and sacrifice were just as vital to the defense of Greece. The battle also reminds us of the cost of betrayal, how one man's treachery can alter the course of history. In the end, Thermopylae wasn't a defeat, it was a spark that ignited a fire. It proved that even the mightiest empire could be challenged by those who refused to bow. It showed that courage, honor, and sacrifice could transcend the battlefield, inspiring generations to come. So the next time you hear the name Thermopylae, remember that it's more than just a place. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a story of ordinary men who chose to do something extraordinary, and a reminder that sometimes the most important battles aren't about winning. They're about standing up for what you believe in, no matter the cost.